so you didn't really get to hear much of what Trump actually said. So originally my plan was to do a piece covering the missed parts of the debate, the things Trump said that were interesting, because none of that really got picked up thanks to Biden's senility. So I'll just play a couple of these and we'll talk about them. Here's the first clip I wanted to show about Ukraine. Well, let's start with this. Let's start with Afghanistan. So here's what Trump said when they asked him about the
tariff on all goods
Ukraine,
coming into the U.S. How will you ensure that that doesn't drive prices even higher?
It's not going to drive them higher. It's just going to cost countries that have been ripping us off for years, like China and many others, in all fairness to China. It's going to just force them to pay us a lot of money, reduce our deficit tremendously, and give us a lot of power for other things. But he made a statement. The only thing he was right about is I gave you the largest tax cut in history. I also gave you the largest regulation cut in history. That's why we had all the jobs. And
everything Trump did is the greatest in history.
Jobs went down and then they bounced back, and he's taking credit for bounce back jobs. You can't do that. He also said he inherited 9% inflation. Now, he inherited almost no inflation, and it stayed that way for 14 months. And then it blew up under his leadership because they spent money like a bunch of people that didn't know what they were doing.
Well, they didn't spend money. They upwardly transferred a bunch of money with the CARES Act to wealthy corporations and wealthy people.
And they don't know what they were doing. It was the worst, probably the worst administration in history. There's never been. And as
that's debatable, but it's possible.
As far as Afghanistan is concerned, I was getting out of Afghanistan, but we were getting out with dignity, with strength, with power. He got out. It was the most embarrassing day in the history of our country's life.
In the history of our country's life. That the Afghanistan thing, I think, is kind of pathetic for conservatives to go at Biden for, because we all wanted to be out of Afghanistan, and Trump started the process. Biden just finished it haphazardly. You know, he probably did, but it was a transition, whatever. Like, as long as we're out, who cares about the details of that? That's one of those topics in the current political debate that kind of annoys me. So here's a good one that people missed. Trump talking about mandates
that you signed into law are set to expire next year. You want to extend them and go even further, you say.
Because a lot of people will say, oh, Trump's daddy COVID, he did warp speed and everything. And he did. But listen to what he says here.
With the U.S. facing trillion-dollar deficits and record debt, why should top earners and corporations pay even less in taxes than they do now?
Because the tax cuts spurred the greatest economy that we've ever seen just prior to COVID. And even after COVID, it was so strong that we were able to get through COVID much better than just about any other country. But we spurred, that tax spurred. Now, when we cut the taxes, as an example, the corporate tax was cut down to 21% from 39%, plus beyond that. We took in more revenue with much less tax, and companies were bringing back trillions of dollars back into our country. The country was going like never before, and we were ready to start paying down debt. We're ready.
See, this is the part where they're like, Trump lies. Like, yeah, he hypes himself. He's a hype man for Trump.
They start using the liquid gold right under our feet, the oil and gas right under our feet. We were going to have something that nobody else has had. We got hit with COVID. We did a lot to fix it. I gave him an unbelievable situation with all of the therapeutics and all of the things that we came up with. We gave him something great. Remember, more people died under his administration, even though we had largely fixed it. More people died under his administration than our administration, and we were right in the middle of it, something which a lot of people don't like to talk about. But he had far more people dying in his administration. He did the mandate, which is a disaster, mandating it. The vaccine went out. He did a mandate on the vaccine, which is the thing that people most objected to about the vaccine. And he did a very poor job, just a very poor job. And I will tell you, not only poor there, but throughout the entire world, we're no longer respected as a country.
So the mandate thing, I think, was the big thing. People forget about that. Trump's clearly not for the mandate. And to me, that's the biggest thing about it. Fine, you want to take the vaccine, you want to do what you want. You know, you're the one that has to suffer the consequences, not me in those situations. So we'll play a couple more of these before we shut off today. Of course, this is one of the best clips of all time.
Here, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID. Excuse me, with dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump.
I love how Jake Tapper hurries and shuts him off. He's like, okay, thank you. We can see that you're stuttering, so we're going to go to the other guy now. So there's one point here about where they talk about the abortion thing that I wanted to touch on. But let's play this first.
Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare because all of these people are coming in. They're putting them on Medicare. They're putting them on Social Security. They're going to destroy Social Security. This man is going to single-handedly destroy Social Security. These millions and millions of people coming in, they're trying to put them on Social Security. He will wipe out Social Security. He will wipe out Medicare. So he was right in the way he finished that sentence. And it's a shame. What's happened to our country in the last 4 years is not to be believed. Foreign countries, I'm friends with a lot of people, they cannot believe what happened to the United States of America. We're no longer respected. They don't like us. We give them everything they want, and they think we're stupid. They think we're very stupid people. What we're doing for other countries.
He's right about that. He is not wrong at all. So here's the abortion thing. This was one of my biggest takeaways that that no one really talked much about when they asked Trump about the abortion pill. Listen to this.
Case temporarily allowing emergency abortions to continue in Idaho, despite that state's restrictive ban. Former President Trump, you take credit for the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, which returned the issue of abortion to the states.
Correct.
However, the federal government still plays a role in whether or not women have access to abortion pills. They're used in about 2/3 of all abortions. As president, would you block abortion medication?
First of all, the Supreme Court just approved the abortion pill, and I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it. And
there you go. How can the Democrats run scary abortion shit against him now? Did you hear what he just said? Let's hear that one more time.
I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it. And if you look at this whole question that you're asking, complex but not really complex. 51 years ago, you had Roe v. Wade, and everybody wanted to get it back to the states. Everybody, without exception. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives. Everybody wanted it back. Religious leaders. And what I did is I put 3 great Supreme Court justices on the court, and they happened to vote in favor of killing Roe v. Wade and moving it back to the states. This is something that everybody wanted. Now, 10 years ago.
Now, people will say that claim is a lie. The press will say that that's a lie. But here's a clip of Joe Biden literally saying almost the exact same thing. Listen to this.
Overwhelming universal criticism by proponents of pro-choice and opponents of pro-choice that Roe v. Wade was not a very well-reasoned decision. Most constitutional scholars do not offer that as an example of, whether they're for or against abortion, a decision that is well-written and well-reasoned. Not the conclusion, but it's not offered as a way to write a decision. There is an
There you go.
They started talking about how many weeks and how many this, getting into other things. But every legal scholar throughout the world, the most respected, wanted it brought back to the states. I did that. Now the states are working it out. If you look at Ohio, it was a decision that was an end result that was a little bit more liberal than you would have thought. Kansas, I would say the same thing. Texas is different. Florida is different. But they're all making their own decisions right now. And right now, the states control it. That's the vote of the people. Like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions. I am a person that believes. And frankly, I think it's important to believe in the exceptions. Some people, you have to follow your heart. Some people don't believe in that. But I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. I think.
There you go. I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. I didn't see many outlets covering this because they were too busy going, "Oh, Biden needs to step down. Biden needs to step down." But he does get a little ridiculous here.
It's very important. Some people don't follow your heart, but you have to get elected also, and because that has to do with other things. You got to get elected.
See, this is the part of Trump that I kind of like too, the candor here. He's like, you have to get elected. He's like, I have to pander to these people. I have to pretend that I'm like super against abortion, but hey, like I'm kind of not.
The problem they have is they're radical because they will take the life of a child in the 8th month, the 9th month.
So this is the part that is not true. No one does that. The only time that happens is if in the cases that he just mentioned, the rape, incest, and the life of the mother. Late term abortion is illegal pretty much countrywide. Now there might be like San Francisco, maybe it's fine where it's like super liberal and they're just like whatever. But there's already too many people in San Francisco anyway. So, you know.
And even after birth, if you look at the former governor of Virginia, he was willing to do this. He said, we'll put the baby aside and we'll determine what we do with the baby, meaning we'll kill the baby. What happened is we brought it back to the state.
So I don't know how true that is. Sometimes Trump goes on these little sidebars like that about the governor of Virginia. I don't know if anyone in the comments knows that story. Let me know. I'm a little ignorant to that. Maybe he's right about that. But to my understanding, late-term abortion isn't allowed anywhere. It's basically murder. Like once you get to like the middle of the second trimester, or even the beginning of it, it's pretty much nationwide. Like, nah, like you have 6 weeks for the most part. It's even in California, I believe it's like 6 weeks, or you have to have some kind of an exception letter or something like that. Don't quote me on that. I don't claim to be an expert on abortion laws, but this last piece, he talks about Ukraine. And I thought this was also something that was really interesting that the corporate press really didn't put out much.
Go back to my original question, which is, are Putin's terms acceptable to you? Keeping the territory in Ukraine?
No, they're not acceptable. But look, this is a war that never should have started. If we had a leader in this war, he led everybody along. He's given $200 billion now or more to Ukraine. He's given $200 billion. That's a lot of money. I don't think there's ever been anything like it. Every time that Zelensky comes to this country, he walks away with $60 billion. He's the greatest salesman ever. And I'm not knocking him. I'm not knocking anything. I'm only saying
Biden's face during this is so good.
No, knocking him. I'm not knocking anything. I'm only saying the money that we're spending on this war, and we shouldn't be spending, it should have never happened. I will have that war settled between Putin and Zelensky as president-elect before I take office on January 20th. I'll have that war settled.
Personally, I think that's why gunshots happened. That right there, that mentality, that candor, that like, hey, I'm going to end this war. I'll talk to Putin. That was for entertainment purposes only. That's a conspiracy theory. I fully admit that.
People being killed so needlessly, so stupidly. And I will get it settled, and I'll get it settled fast before I take office.
President Biden, you have a minute.
So there you have it. Some debate moments that were largely glossed over, and now the news cycle is going to be entirely assassination news, I'm sure. I know that they found the shooter, and I haven't heard much more outside of that. There's a lot of people, oh, it's Antifa, to the left, the far left, yeah. Whatever. I'm sure the guy, again, they've been saying Trump is Hitler and a threat to democracy and all this stuff for years now. It's the constant brainwash cycle. He's a Hitler. He's a threat to democracy, convicted felon, whatever you need. And so, that kind of rhetoric, the Democrats called it stochastic terrorism when Rush Limbaugh and all the crazy right-wingers did it. So now they're doing it. Because they are the Republicans. The Democratic Party is the neocons.